It's the holiday season, a time for cheer, a time for goodwill, a time to give back. Not for Republicans running for president. We just heard the president's plan on how to move the country forward. But Newt Gingrich has a different take on how to get America working again.
The left has collapsed as a moral system in this country, and why you need to reassert something as simple as saying to them, go get a job right after you take a bath. The degree to which the left is prepared to impose intolerance and to drive out of existence traditional religion is a mortal threat to our civilization. It is tragic what we do in the poorest neighborhoods, in trapping children, first of all, in child laws, which are truly stupid. Most of these schools ought to get rid of the unionized janitors, have one master janitor, and pay local students to take care of the school.
Get rid of child labor laws and make kids work as school janitors. Telling people to take a bath and get a job. This is the new frontrunner of the GOP race, and they love it. A new poll shows Newt's #1, leading the pack at 22%, still surging despite revelations about his work for Freddie Mac that made him $1.6 million. But he's not the only Grinch. Here's the crew at the Family Leaders Thanksgiving Forum in Iowa. Remember, it's supposed to be a Thanksgiving forum.
There is only moral and immoral, and the law has to reflect what is right and good and just for our society.
The way you fight back is not be afraid to express your faith in any setting rather than worrying about the political correctness police.
Marriage is between one man and one woman, and in that as well, you cannot adopt a child unless it is one man and one woman.
If you fail in taking care of yourself, you don't do well, you don't have a right to go to your neighbor directly, and you don't have a right to go to your government and say, go to my neighbor and take care of me because I didn't meet up with my responsibilities. They have to face the consequences.
Joining me now is Nia Malika Henderson, a Washington Post national reporter who also writes for their Election 2012 blog, and Aaron McPike, a reporter for the Real Clear Politics. Thanks to both of you for being here tonight. Nia Malika, is this the best way to get nominated to the Republican Party, is to be mean? I mean, Newt Gingrich is #1 in the latest poll.
Well, you know, I think we'll have to take a look at those polls a week from now or 2 weeks from now. The statements that they made are certainly a good way to get cheers in Iowa and get support there. A lot of religious right folks in that audience on Saturday. But again, I think these Republicans forget the lesson of 2000 when George Bush ran as a compassionate conservative. They've forgotten the compassionate part of that and are really moving towards the far right in terms of their conservatism, and it won't do them any good in the general election. As I said, it'll be good for them for now in terms of trying to get votes in Iowa and some of these early states like South Carolina. But I think, you know, in some ways they're thinking that they can channel some of this anger that is certainly present among Tea Party folks. But again, I think they end up setting up a really easy contrast for Democrats who can say, do you want to live in America where we're rolling back child labor laws, or do we want to live in an America where children are protected against exploitation and working as janitors in a school?
Well, Aaron, I mean, Nia says let's see where we are in a week from now. But in the last week, we saw the revelations about Mr. Gingrich really being contradictory in his position on Freddie Mac, his position on health care. Notwithstanding the money, we're talking about the exact opposite positions. And he's telling people get a bath and get a job. And he's talking about child labor laws. And the fact with all of that, a Washington Post reporter went back to Iowa and talked to people in Iowa that did not really support Mr. Gingrich, who now see them as the guy to do the job.
Right. You know, I've talked to a lot of people in New Hampshire, actually, about Newt Gingrich, and they all told me today they really don't think Newt Gingrich is going anywhere. It's just really a matter of someone has to be an alternative to Mitt Romney.
But if he wins Iowa before he comes to New Hampshire, and I've showed the Washington Post article, if he wins Iowa, that will change New Hampshire, South Carolina, and anything. It's easy to say that now, which, let's remember now, a few months ago, we were saying it's the end of his campaign. His staff had walked out. He had a $500,000 line of credit owed at Tiffany's, and now he's #1 in the polls. If he wins Iowa, it changes New Hampshire going forward, and it seems like none of this has stopped him. In fact, he's gone up in Iowa.
That's true, but if you look at Iowa-specific polls, Iowa is now a four-way tie between Herman Cain, Mitt Romney, and Newt Gingrich and Ron Paul. So it's not necessarily that Newt Gingrich is poised to win Iowa. It's a four-way tie, so it's a free-for-all right there. And I think that's why we're seeing some of these crazy comments, if that's what you want to call them, because they really are going for the religious right in Iowa, and they eat that kind of stuff up.
Now, Nia, when you look at the fact that, yes, they are tied, but Mitt Romney is flat. Willard just can't seem to move the dial no matter what he does, which means it is very possible that either Mr. Gingrich or even Cain upsets it or comes so close till Willard comes limping into New Hampshire and then limping into South Carolina. What does this tell us about the Republican Party base?
Well, it tells us that they don't really like Mitt Romney. Who knows if that's going to be something that carries for the next couple of weeks, couple of months through this campaign, but there is the eternal search for the guy who is not Romney. They will take Newt Gingrich. They will take Herman Cain. They will take Ron Paul. They will take anyone so far rather than take a look at Mitt Romney. And we've heard that apparently Mitt Romney might double down in Iowa and try to make some noise there. He wasn't there on Saturday when those folks were making those comments about gay marriage. But it does look like, I mean, I think one key thing to point out is that New Hampshire loves to veto whatever Iowa does. Mike Huckabee, of course, ran and won in 2008 and then did poorly in New Hampshire. So, you know, he's obviously putting all of his eggs in the New Hampshire basket and thinking that South Carolina will be the decider in this race, as it typically is. But he, you know, he can't be happy with the fact that he has seemed to flatline at 25% in these polls. He'll be up with some ads in New Hampshire tomorrow.
Well, you may be right, Nia. Aaron, I think that one of the things that was stunning to me is at the forum, this is Thanksgiving forum, Rick Santorum actually said suffering, I mean, it's like it was just all right to suffer. Look at this.
You know, suffering, if you're a Christian, suffering is part of life. And it's not a bad thing. It is an essential thing in life. And that we suffer, there are all different ways to suffer. One way to suffer is through lack of food and shelter. There's another way to suffer, which is lack of dignity and hope. And there's all sorts of ways that people suffer, and it's not just tangible.
I mean, suffering is a part of life, but do we need a presidential candidate to act like that's expected? Yeah, I'm a Christian, Rick. I understand the crucifixion. I also kept reading. We got to the resurrection, Rick. You don't just stop at the suffering. You talk about how you suffer through until you can resurrect. What are they talking about? Get a bath, get a job. Suffering's part of life. It's all right. Have they lost it?
As far as Rick Santorum is concerned, let's just remember one thing. Rick Santorum is stuck at 1% in national polls, in early state polls, and right now he's just trying to get attention. So, of course, he's going to start saying crazy things because now you're talking about it, and that's what he wants. He just wants some kind of attention. I think that's the case with a lot of these candidates.
But nobody denounced him, Aaron, when he said it. None of them that were quoting the Bible quoted what I just did. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Nia. Let me say this, Nia. You said that New Hampshire usually vetoes Iowa. These guys talk like they're going to veto Thanksgiving. They may cancel Christmas.
It's a non-traditional campaign this time.